It's great to see you today. Thanks for
Hi, John. So good to see you as well.
thanks for coming on the show. Tell me a little bit about yourself and the work that you're doing.
I am Kanetra Hights. I do go by Kiki. Pronouns are she and her. I am in a lot of different spaces currently. I primarily do diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, social justice work, as well as talent management, in learning and development and growth plans, as well as anything touching the human resources world, HR, people. I kind of roll it underneath people, culture, and talent, are the fields of expertise that I do operate in as well. I own a consulting firm called Cultural Heights, a little play off of my last name.
Love it.
Cultural Heights Solutions focuses on inclusion and growth paths for leaders across the country. And so we do a lot of growth and development, whether we're talking about generational differences, inclusive leadership. We also do stuff on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If anyone
Mm.
is familiar out there with that in the psych world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, something I've studied and near and dear to my heart is what people need in order to be successful and to feel 100% themselves in today's world. So that's just a little bit roundabout of the world that I work in as well.
I love it, and you have such a breadth of experience across all of the areas that hit on culture and how we interact with each other at work. You mentioned some generational differences and some of the consulting work that you do, but I gotta
Mhm.
ask you, like, what is the culture, if you could sum it up, that you're shooting for, that you're trying to create for people?
I think everybody has like a dream culture of a world that they want to live in the workplace where everyone is treated fairly, they all have equal opportunities, they all have the ability to do what they can do, and be successful at it. I think that's a dream that everybody has. Um, and I have that dream as well, is no
I do
matter who
too.
I am, I know you do, John, right? No matter who you are, no matter what you come into, you want to be treated with respect. You want to be able to have all of your personal needs met. You want to be heard and listened to, and you want to be able to be successful and have the opportunity to use your skills and talents to be successful as well. And so not everyone has those opportunities, and there's barriers that are in the way. And I am dedicated to kicking those barriers to the side. Whether it's equal pay, it's pay equity, whether it's the personal well-being of others, whether it's I am disabled and I need accommodations at work.
Yeah.
What are those barriers and how can we push those to the side?
I love it. And I like that you added well-being in there too. Have you noticed any changes in the expectations that employees have for their company culture around well-being?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's definitely since COVID, right? Since the switch over to COVID, it completely changed the meaning of what well-being is.
Oh,
I
it
think,
certainly did. It certainly.
right? I think before well-being used to be a lot of like, what does my insurance look like and my benefits, and not even thinking about all of the other things that go into well-being, like the mental health
Mm.
of others. COVID caused a lot of mental health problems to be front and center instead of hiding in the shadows. And so, what programs can we offer to help address mental health needs? What are some of the things that we can do for work-life balance? I truly believe, and personally thoughts have changed on what work-life balance is since going through COVID and the changes in the world. How can I shift that culture into what can we do to make sure people have enough PTO to take the days that they need to take? Even to what our insurance covers. Does our insurance cover mental health? Does our insurance cover the right maternity and paternity leaves? Does it
Mhm.
cover leaves for people who are adopting or going through foster care? We have to really talk and consider those things and talk about the whole well-being of what that person needs, that for health and for their personal mental capabilities and stability.
Yeah, it all is connected. And you mentioned everybody wanting to be seen and heard, and that's a phrase that gets used a lot, but it's such a powerful thing. And I think mental challenges, whether it be mental wellness or the caring for folks in our family and the added stress, it has an impact on how we show up for work and what we bring every day. I love that all of that is on your radar. What would you say those some of the like top barriers that are impacting the well-being or the full engagement of employees at work these days?
Oh, that's a really good question, right? And I'll try to answer it in the best way that I can. I probably see multiple roads to that. Um,
Top
you
three,
know,
maybe. Yeah.
so one thing that comes to mind, top of mind is people just don't understand what that full well-being is. Um, and I don't think that, you know, we've been properly, people have been properly trained or have that knowledge to fully understand that there's multifaceted layers to employee well-being, or we get it confused with other things that we just consider to be work habits or things that we can kind of just sweep underneath the rug, right? And so
Can
I
you give me an
think
example of that? I'm not sure I follow.
yeah.
Like
I so one of the things that comes to mind when I think about that is and since it's Autism Awareness Month or Acceptance Month, we call it Autism Acceptance Month. Since it's that, I want to kind of talk about that, like the neurodivergency aspects and people living with autism and anxiety and depression and those types of things, the non-visible accessibility needs, we really don't typically pay attention to what those needs are, and we don't understand them, right? So we don't understand people who live with autism and come into the office every day. What do they need in order to be functioning and to order to contribute in a way that that they can contribute. So we don't set ourselves up for success on that, but I also think we don't know enough about it. We don't, that's not something you learn in school. It's not something when you go
right.
through human resources classes or anything like that that comes up as into what neurodivergent individuals need or what their insurance looks like or what their mental health needs look like. We don't really talk about those things. And so we just kind of brush it underneath the rug and say, oh, well, you have anxiety. If you go to a psychologist, you're fine. But what do I do if I'm having anxiety at work?
Right now. Yeah, like you have anxiety. Here's the number to the helpline. Go ahead and
Here's a
call.
number.
Yeah.
Yes.
That doesn't
Like
always
call,
work, right?
yeah, call this 1-800 number for the helpline and they'll help you. But I'm like, but
You know,
that's not it. And I personally have anxiety as well.
okay.
And it took a long time for me to even know that I was having anxiety and how to deal with it, and learn those mechanisms as
That
well.
that I'm so glad you brought that up because in my experience, I've also found that like when you are trying to get to the root of what somebody needs, right? To feel their best at work or to just feel safe, like psychologically safe at work. Um, you ask them what they need, and sometimes people don't know what they need. Do you ever come across that? And like, how would you help people articulate what they need?
Yeah, I think we do come across it that where people struggle and they don't necessarily know what that struggle is or why it happens. One of the things that I do is I call them cultural roundtables.
Okay.
And we just get a group of people together and we ask explicit, how are you doing? Do you feel like the company is treating you inclusively? What are some of the opportunities for improvement? And then that kind of gets the conversation starting. And then you notice people jump in and they say, you know what, I never thought about it like this, but I have these needs, or the company's not communicating right with me, or I don't feel like I have like all of the tools I need to be successful. I don't feel like I have the resources that I need to be comfortable. And all of that conversation comes out. I remember I did a cultural roundtable in, I believe I was in New Jersey,
Okay.
um, and it came out in the conversation that this person was not being allowed enough break time. And she was going through some internal issues with like, having stomach issues and so forth. But
Hmm.
it hurts more when I'm at work because I don't have enough breaks. And so I was like, well, there's got to be something that we can do about that. That's a medical necessary need. And so after talking to the leader at that location, we were able to work out that she does have a medical issue she didn't want to share.
Hmm.
But we need to make accommodations so they're able to give her more breaks and so forth so that she can still be there and not call. And she was calling out sick a lot because of it too. And so I'm like, we just need to start listening and asking questions and not maybe making people so afraid to talk about what their issues are.
I love it. I love that you are able to kind of listen and then take action. And these cultural roundtables sound like they're really, really hitting the mark and helping folks out to at least just give voice or know that people are paying attention in that way. Uh,
Right.
I'm curious, like, what are some signs that a company is getting it right for their people or, missing the mark?
Yeah. Well, I think number one, people don't leave.
Okay. So you're getting it right if people don't leave,
If
retention.
people don't leave, I do believe that people leave their leaders and not necessarily the people or the company, right? But
Mm.
I think if people don't leave, it all starts with leadership to me.
Okay.
Leaders set the trends for the organization. They are the trendsetters of how things are going to go. And people really play off of leadership and how leaders act and behave. And that really does set in your mind, is this a place that you want to work at based upon leadership behavior? And so if your leaders are come in a way that you see them being more inclusive, you see them having open and honest conversations, you see them interacting with all levels in the organization, and they're just not, I'm only going to talk to my vice presidents or my senior leaders or, that type of mentality, and you see them in a more comfortable, casual setting, and they are making good decisions with the people first mentality in mind, that's when people want to stay.
Yeah.
And so you have to give leaders those mindsets and give them the tools and help them become those type of leaders. And I truly believe when people start leaving the organization, it's something that's not right and something's not happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
No,
people stay where they're happy.
exactly. The name of this podcast is Interaction, and it's the reason that it's interaction is because of something you just said there is that you can be working for a company that has a great statement around their culture, and you could have an executive layer that is relationship based and they speak it and you just see it and it comes out of them and they're aligned with that culture. But you could have one interaction with your manager,
Just one.
one interaction, and you watch it, and that's like what I'm saying. But then the solution is also related to interacting with one another.
Hmm.
So I hear you say like that leadership alignment to the core values that a company has. And when you see it, not just what they say, but I heard actions, like people are watching what you do and how you carry yourself. When you come down to that next level where there's like a ton of like middle managers who might not have been fully on board with the message and thinking of that one interaction, how can you address that layer to get buy-in to make sure that they're living or operating in line with that as well?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you asked that question because sometimes that's the most problematic area, right?
It's in my experience as well. So I'm
I
glad
mean,
that
let's
it's not
be,
just for me, but go ahead.
yeah, let's be truthful. That area, that middle level management area, the ones that employees see every day, that is the make it or break it area
Oh yeah.
for companies as well. And so, I always think about when hiring managers go and hire that level, or we're recruiting for that level. How are we doing that? What are we looking for? Are you looking for just a person who has the skills to do the job, or are you looking for someone who can be a leader? And I think it takes both. A lot of times we get hung up on, oh, well, this person has a great track record of, implementing these types of strategies or building a high percentage of ROI or so forth.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, that's great, but how do they treat their people? And so you can come in and you can have a ton of skills, and that's awesome. And we look for that and we want that. Well, however, we also want people who have great track records of leading their people to be successful as well, because you can't get 100% there in your goals and all your excellent achievements without how you've led your people. And if you've had a team that helps contribute to that, that's what I want to know. I want to, when interviewing for jobs and looking for people, asking them, how did you get to this goal? Was it just you? Or was it you and a team of people? How was your interactions with them? How did they treat you and so forth? So I think
It would
those
be
are,
great if that like was on equal footing with the Met KPIs, produced this much, hit the bottom line. It would be, I think, a big change to have those on with equal weight when interviewing or looking at leadership prospects.
yeah.
In my coaching practice, I work with a lot of emerging and younger leaders who climb the ranks and get noticed because of all of that skill-based and producing the right numbers, and they get elevated into this leadership role and don't realize like what is leadership or haven't been taught leadership. Do you address that gap in any of the work that you do, the leadership, the inclusive leadership, however you frame it?
Yeah, yeah. So that's one of the things that we do in Cultural Heights. So I do coaching as well for not for executive leaders, but beginning leaders, like people who want to. I know there's a lot of executive coaches out there, and I love them and I think they're great, and I get executive coaching as well. However, there's a layer missing for people who are moving from what we call a skill-based only job
Mhm.
into a leadership position. So whether you're going to be a frontline supervisor or moving into I'm a first-time supervisor position or a team lead or a first-time manager position, you have done probably amazing at your job, but you may be lacking the necessary skills on how do I lead people. And we need coaches out there and programs for that level of, okay, I am now a new manager. Here are some things that I need right now into what I need to learn. So, with the inclusive leadership, that is the beginning steps. We talk about what is inclusion first off, because that is where we need to be at. What does it mean to be inclusive? How do I make decisions from an inclusive standpoint? So, it goes through four different areas, starting at the beginning. And in the inclusive leadership class, you actually work on a project or a program that you implement back into your organization. So it may be for HR leaders, what am I going to do to bring in a more inclusive policy or process?
Mhm.
And it may be for someone who is in manufacturing, who's starting out as a supervisor. I have a team and they're working on a new implementation project. What am I going to be able to do it more inclusively? Am I going to have huddles where I ask everybody for their opinions and so forth? So that's a part of the class. You get a lot of training on that. You get training on respect, and you actually get a coaching session as well. So all of this is included in that cohort to really starting out with the mindset of inclusion so that you carry it throughout your whole career as a leader.
I love it. I think what is a masterful stroke in that is that tying in the practical. So it's like, here's the training, here's the thing, but you're going back and actually doing something and that's going to have an impact. It's going to be sustaining or reinforcing the learning that you have. So for new leaders, the emerging leaders, the ones that I think that light your fire to work with,
Mhm.
mine too, to a degree, what would you say? and I don't want to call them soft skills, but what would you say the like top skills for inclusive-minded leaders or emerging leaders to make sure that they're being fair to everyone that they're now responsible for?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. I think number one is relationship building, learning how to build relationships with others. What are some of the things that we talk about together? What are some of the questions that I need to ask them as well in order to gain their perspective, and to learn and understand different perspectives? So I think one of the top things is that relationship building that is key in building a rapport with your team as well, and understanding them and learning them as well. I think another thing that I also like to talk about is active listening.
Yep.
Uh, Sometimes we say we listen, but do we truly listen to what people are saying? In being active listening about that. So that is another thing that I also talk about is how do we active listen to others and to what their needs are as well. And then the third thing is, what I talked about earlier is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yep.
It's important for our leaders to understand the different levels of what people need in order for them to feel like they have a place and that they belong there, which is that belonging part that we talk about when we talk about inclusion. You can be inclusive, but do I feel like I belong there? And so getting that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and actually I always recommend that leaders walk their teams through the hierarchy of needs and actually ask questions, starting with, okay, what are your personal needs? What are your financial needs? What are your health and safety needs? Like, creating safe environments for employees is very critical as well, especially in today's
Physically
time.
safe and like interpersonally, psychologically safe.
Yes, yes. I have been in the manufacturing world for quite some time,
Uh-huh.
and we always talk about safety, because who wants to go to a job and then not know if they're going to get hurt or lose a limb or a finger
Right.
or fall off a ladder, or no one wants to do that. And when I started out in my career, I started out in manufacturing and human resources as a trainer in those types of environments. And I just remember, having to go through horror stories of training on OSHA violations and people getting their hand caught in machine. And I'm like, this cannot be what people expect to come to work and happen to them. We've got to do better.
Right.
Um,
But
so
yeah, like you know it's a good day because you have both of your hands at the end of the day.
yeah, and
That's
you
not
and
the
you have no,
benchmark we're going for, right? I mean, it is a good benchmark, but
yes,
let's set the
and
goal higher, right?
everybody comes to work and they leave just as they were, all limbs attached, no cuts or bruises,
Fully
and it's
intact.
and it's great, and we have no OSHA violations, and that's a great
Yeah.
day. So I think taking them through that Maslow's hierarchy and actually asking the questions of each layer gives you an understanding of your team's needs, and that helps you understand what you need to do and fight for your team every day.
I think it's great. And that framework, I think, gets people to sometimes look at that for the first time. I think like we were mentioning a little bit earlier. Are there any like successes or programmatically or a story that you can leave us with that I don't know, it fuels your fire and is a good example of getting it right?
Yeah, I do. I just have a recent short a story to tell. So, and this is in the world of languages. Because we have a lot of different languages spoken in the workplace now, regardless, we are a cultural stew and we have people who speak different languages. So, we recently started a language program that includes, you go through so much testing on the app, and then we actually give you an in-person exam for learning English. So we do have some Spanish speakers in our production area. Um, However, our requirements for going into supervisor or manager is that you do have to be bilingual. And so a lot of people are missing the English part. So we created a program where it's free for our employees to learn English, and it's also free for 5 of their family members to actually gain access to the app as well, so that they can learn in a family setting. And then once they get to a certain level, we actually give them a test that consists of audio, um, writing skills, listening skills, and then they have to speak back to us as well, in English and certain phrases. And then that we give them a certificate and they've passed as well. So I have graduated classes from our facilities with that. But what's great is we just had one person who was one of our first graduates get promoted into a quality leadership position because she went through the program and learned English. And I mean, she spent probably about 500 hours learning English in our program and was because that was able to get promoted. And I'm just like, this is what makes it worth it every day is to like, and that was a need that we listened to.
I was gonna say you probably
Yeah,
listened to at the very beginning. Yeah.
yeah, and we knew that it was needed, and we want to see people get promoted that need to get promoted and that deserve to get promoted. And so it was just great to have her go through that. And I mean, what else can you say when you see somebody promoted and now, she knew little to no English and now she speaks both languages great. It's great to see and hear. I love it.
I do too, and I can imagine for all the people looking at that promotion who might be on the fence about or not know how to take that step to learn an extra language or even just build any skill that's going to help promote them. What a wonderful story. I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today. I have really enjoyed hearing your perspective and your approach to how to make the workplace more inclusive and better for everyone. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
No, thank you, John, for having me. This is great. I love it. And I love that this is called interactions. And that's what we talk about and we preach. It's important to have them. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you.